Okay, I think we are right on time to begin this presentation, this conference. I'd like to thank everybody for your attendance today. It's very important for all of these presentations we are trying to do on, well, not monthly basis, but every 2 months or so with special guests. As you can see on the screen here, and the bio data of Pamela Saavedra. She is our special guest for this conference. She is a teacher of English, as you can see there, and she has long been in the field of teaching English as a second language, and she holds an MA in Informática Educativa, awarded by Universidad de la Frontera. She is currently also studying her PhD program in English language teaching and applied linguistics, right, at the University of Warwick, England. So Pamela is actually transmitting from there right now. Okay. And as you can see there, some of her latest publications include chapters in books and a variety of articles. So one of her latest ones is 2020, Developing Writing and Reflection Skills of First Students, Teachers in Chile, right? That's a book, chapter in a book. And 2019, Chilean pre-service teachers' perceptions towards benefits and challenges of EFL writing portfolios. Once again, we really appreciate the team of ELT, Marcia Monsalves, Sandra Situa. We really appreciate your presence and support for this. This presentation is going to be 1 hour, 45 minutes or so of presentation, and at the end, we will be happy to answer all the questions you may have, right? The last 15 minutes. So it should be around 1 hour in total. Pamela, we are here to hear you, so welcome to this conference.
Okay, hello everybody. Thank you very much for the invitation to the ELT program at the Universidad de la Frontera. And it's good afternoon for you, it's good evening for me. I'm just going to, today, I didn't want to present like a very formal and academic presentation, because I think that usually when we go on a Friday afternoon for you, and we just want to get something like practical that we think that we might use in our practice. So I tried. I don't know if you can see my screen. Let me see. Can you?
Yes.
You see my screen? Okay.
Yes, we can.
So it's just like a revision of probably what you know, especially the teachers from the program. This is what you do, like when you teach the pre-service teachers, and also for pre-service teachers and in-service teachers is something that you know, but sometimes it's good just to review a little bit what we know about this strategy.
Oh.
Little bit
Algo pasó.
about this strategy.
Right. Let's see.
No se escucha ni se ve.
Problems.
Okay. We are just going to fix that. Pamela, are you there? I don't know if Pamela is with us. Yeah, she's back.
Okay. Sorry.
Sorry about it. Yeah.
I don't know what I did.
No,
It's
that's
like
all right.
I'm not really used to this one. I'm not really used to the platform, I think. So please tell me if you can see my screen now again.
Yes, we can.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. So as I was saying, it's like just reviewing things and giving you like tips and latest publications and materials and worksheets. Some of them are ready to use worksheets. Some others you can adapt them to your own context. But the idea is that we can discuss a little bit about writing, which is I would say one of the most complex skills to develop in all levels, because it takes time for all of us, for students and for teachers, right? So this is a very broad name, writing strategies, for the workshop. And we will start with something like very important. Why is writing so important? Why is writing so important for our future teachers, the teachers that you are training, but also for us as teachers in whatever level we're teaching, right? So I don't know if I can ask someone so we can make it a little bit more interactive. Why, in your opinion, is writing so important in our programs? As a teacher. I don't know if somebody can just speak through. As I told you, I'm not really familiar with Zoom.
Yeah, we can just activate our microphone.
Okay, perfect.
And someone is raising
Paulina,
their hand.
okay. Go ahead, Paulina.
To see how well we develop the writing skills, if we have been I don't know, improving the way we gain more experience to learn the English.
Absolutely. And it takes a long time,
Yes.
right? Absolutely. Thank you, Paulina. So writing is very important because it allows us to express our feelings, our thoughts, the way we see the world. But in our practice, it helps us also to communicate and to share, to disseminate our practice, to share our practice, for us to reflect about our practice. So it is a skill that we are always using, and that we teach how to write in whatever level we teach, that's for sure. But we teachers teach how to write, but do we write ourselves? How often do we write? That is a question that I always placed to myself, that we are very keen on correcting and everything, but in fact, it's a practice that we usually postpone because it takes such a long time. And so how often do we write? Do we keep a journal, or do we do something for ourselves as teachers in whatever the context we are? And what types of texts do we write? So we know that we need to teach writing, but writing should also be part of us, of teachers, because the importance of teachers who write will help us somehow connect a little bit more with our students. So for pre-service teachers is something that you have to do because it's part of your practice. But then when we go into the system and when we start teaching, whether at school or at the university level, it's something that we usually do not do that often. And when we do have to do it ourselves, we see how hard it is and how complex it is. I've been working with writing for a long time. I've published a bit. I'm working now towards the PhD, and it's still really hard for me to write and to actually, it seems like everything is so clear in your head, but once you have to translate it into words, it's not that easy as we have anticipated. So it is not, the presentation here is just to think about this skill, the importance of its skill, but it's also that it's an ongoing process, that it will never end, neither for neither if you write in your first language or in your second language. So when we teach writing, that we know that it's so difficult and it's so complex, it is good that we position ourselves doing the same task before we go, and we will notice that writing a story, even in 100 words in 40 minutes, is not that easy if we would do it ourselves before. So today is just a workshop. It's not an academic presentation. I don't want you to give you like tons of references. about authors, but just like give you some tips and something that you can take away with you. So very briefly, writing at schools in Chile. Now, one strategy, well, this is an approach more than a strategy, but that I've been working with and that I consider it's useful for students in different levels. Then the portfolio as a strategy, because this is something that I have been using for a long time and it has proved to be beneficial for students and that you might consider using it. And also as part of the portfolio, teacher and peer feedback. And I will show you some free applications that might help you in that process, because that's a very time-consuming process. So it's just, as you know, a revision of things that you all know, for sure. So writing production skills in the Chilean system, we know that teaching and learning how to write in a second language is a complex task because it takes time, it takes revision after revision, and it takes reflection. And as you were saying before, we don't have time to reflect on what we do. That's why I think it's so hard to actually start a piece of writing and finish it, whatever it is, a paper, whatever it is, an article for a magazine or for an academic journal. It's time, it takes time, it takes revision, and it takes reflection. And when are we going to find the time to do that? And however, it is very complex. It's a requirement for the Ministry of Education in all our classrooms, right, where we teach English as a foreign language. I have checked the goals from the ministry. Sandra very kindly provided them to me to have an idea, a very updated idea of what the government requires. So that's why I chose the process approach, because I think it's like in line with the requirements from the government. So the Chilean context reality that you know better than me tell us that the students' range of vocabulary is very limited, right? So it's very hard for them to express their ideas in English. Like in addition to that, their lack of grammar knowledge makes it even harder. So sometimes for some students, they cannot even write like a sentence. So how can we expect them to write a whole text? And on top of that is that they are not familiar with many genres, not even in Spanish as their first language. So that's another complication. It should be easier somehow if they have like a wide knowledge of writing in L1 that they can transfer to L2. So what we might do, we have to do it. The ministry tells us that we have to do it, but we have 40 students or 45 students in the classroom. So it's complicated to do it. So start with small tasks, even at the sentence level, but develop this over time. Like even if writing every week, the thing is that we usually attempt for students or for us as teachers is to finish one text at once in one sitting. And we think that if in one class we just ask them to write the main idea, even if the main idea is 2 lines, it's a waste of time because we have a program too that we need to cover and we are very worried about coverage. But since we know that this is that the writing skill is a process, spending half an hour of a class just writing the main idea of the text, it's worth it. We think it's not, but in the long run, we can see that it's worth it. So do not attempt to ask students to write a text at once, just in one sitting, but do it step by step. Connect that. I know that all the textbooks do this, is just connect at the lower levels, reading and writing, so you can model the reading text by substituting or replacing with vocabulary and structures that the students know. Encourage multiple drafting. Again, a matter of time, but the thing is like, how can we do 2 or 3 or 4 drafts of the same text if we don't have time to do it? The thing is like, we just need to write less texts, even if it's 2 writes that we write throughout the year. But for students to actually see what the process takes and how it is done. That is, they always have this idea that you need to see it and come up with an idea and structure a text and edit it and correct it and have a perfect text by the end of a class, which is impossible. And at the end, I know that this is kind of dreamy, that it's hard, but to look for topics that might be of their interest, that might be somehow related to the textbook, so they can stretch their vocabulary on that topics. So the process of approach to teaching writing, I have used it in my practice, so I think it might be a good option for teachers in general to use it. I'm not saying that's the only approach, but for the lower levels, it is an approach that has proved beneficial in general. Then for higher levels, we can move to genre approach and other approaches. But at the beginning, and for school especially, I think it is worth at least giving a try, and the ministry doesn't actually like explicitly mention it, but what they ask you to do is under this approach, which is in direct contrast with the product approach, when we just focus our attention on the final product. This approach focuses on the different steps or stages that we need to develop in order to create a final product. And an important part that I know it's hard for all of us is that involve everybody, that everybody gets involved in the process. Teachers, the student who's the student writer, but also our peers, and we tend to do as teachers all the job, because if we think that it's our job and that we think that students will not be as satisfied if they just get feedback from their peers. So actually we end up doing nothing, because we think that since we need to do everything and we do not have time to do everything, it's not worth doing it. And that will always be like the final word. I can't do it, I don't have time to do it, and that's it. And it would be easier somehow if you might include all the participants. And I will show you how I have done. I'm not saying that this is the best way to do it, but it might be, you might get some ideas from it. So this is the process. We're going to see the different stages of the process like separately, but it starts with pre-writing activities, then the writing and revising, which is an ongoing process, editing, and at the end, publishing the final version, publishing, of course, in whatever the repository for your writing is. At school, it could be a magazine or whatever you decide it's going to be. So we are going to start with the first part, with this first stage, and I would say that pre-writing matters, right? Students tend to say that it doesn't matter, that it's a waste of time, but it does matter, because the actual thinking process of writing is done at this stage. So if we don't train our students, and if we do not train ourselves to do this before we start writing, we will run out of time, always. Is it easy? It's not easy, right? Because it, as we have said before, it takes time, but we need to emphasize and try that our students do this every time they face the process of writing a new piece of writing. So this is important information that learners need to have in mind before. Always know why they are writing, because the EFL classroom or the language classrooms is like very, it's like not real. It is somehow that you see that we're forcing a situation. So if we create a purpose, like what they are writing for, and they know beforehand that they are giving an argument, or they are inviting, whatever they are doing, they know it beforehand, that they know what text they are writing beforehand, and that they know the audience. This is the most complicated one because the situations are fictional situations that we create, but even if we create that, it might work. And then we can look for other situations, like we can ask them to write a letter to a teacher who lives abroad or someone who lives abroad, or try to find a situation that is real somehow, right? But we know that it's hard because we are in the language classroom. So that's the first part. And then choose techniques. It doesn't have to be one technique to do the pre-writing, and we can offer them like a range of techniques, and they can choose if they, for their brain, it works better just to create a list of the ideas, or if it is a chart, or if it is a mind map, or just to put the ideas there. But it's I think it's like not imposing one, but to tell them that what's the purpose of each of these techniques and how they might help them. And then what it usually worked for me is that they showed me, like they explained, they could do it in whatever form they want, but just to explain me as a teacher or their classmates how they organize their ideas before they start writing. And it helps them because before they start writing, while they are telling someone, if you don't have time to listen to them, ask them to record something. It's just while we know that while we want to put our thoughts in words, it helps us to organize them even better while we're writing them. To say, I thought of this idea and this, oh, but now I can see that they are not connected. At school, probably, and maybe they won't be able to do it in English. They can use, I know that many of you say that they are not allowed to, but maybe they can do just for the connection, to make connections that they can use Spanish if what they are writing there is in English. They can work individually or collaboratively, because if they are writing about the same topic, they can have some similar ideas like a foundation, and they go with their own. They can use applications such as Padlet, you know more than me because you have been teaching with online for 2 years now. So they can share, and since they do not write their names on the Padlet, you do not know who exactly wrote what. So it's a good idea for them to share them, and then someone who maybe is a little bit shy, they can see the ideas and get new ideas for the pre-writing. But it's just emphasizing, like in this model, that the pre-writing really matters. And I'm sure you know this, and you have proved that it does matter, and the quality of the writing increases. Here, there are ideas for brainstorming and pre-writing. This is a very good web page that I found. You have to register, but it's for free. So there are tons of examples of downloadable worksheets for pre-writing. Most of these are done for L1, but for primary school education. So we can apply them as well at the university, or if we're working at school, we can apply them as well. So have a look at this because they're really good and you can adapt them as you wish, okay? So the idea is that we have something ready just to go, and we don't need to do and start thinking for every single piece of writing. You can have, you can choose a couple of these and just adapt it to your own tasks. Then it goes, we continue with the writing and revising, which is an ongoing process. How long do you want it to go? It depends on yourselves. How many drafts do you think it's enough? Again, we go with time. Is it just 2 drafts? You give feedback to one and they write the second one, or is it 2 or 3 drafts? Are you going to write, if you just write 2 texts during the whole year at school, maybe they can write even one text during 2 or 3 months, just to let them experience and to understand the complexity of the writing process. Feedback from the teacher. Again, we think that we need to give feedback on everything, and we know very well that students do not read our feedback. most of the time. So decide, it's like, are you going just to give feedback on grammar, or are you going to give feedback on the ideas, on organization? There are some applications that might help you. They are not perfect, as the teacher would go like very picky, but it might be like just the first approach to check them. I will show you some of the applications that I have tried myself. And as I said, they are not very picky as a teacher would be, but they can help us, and the load of work would be less, and they can even use them themselves if you are if they are working online, and if they are working in the classroom, and if they have access to a computer, they can do it themselves. So for the drafts, I don't know, for the first draft, you will not give feedback because you will ask them to do through one of these applications. If they don't do it, and then you are assessing one of these drafts, well, they missed the chance, right? But there are ways that we can do it to help ourselves with time. Peer feedback, I know that usually we say they don't know how they can help their classmates, if they don't know if I match very weak students with a strong student for the stronger one, it's going to be a waste of time. It's never a waste of time, especially for pre-service teachers, because it gives them an idea of what they will have to do in the classroom. So I think just it's a matter of teach them how to do it, to train them a little bit, show them specific criteria and rubrics and things that they can use. And I will give you another website later where you can find some of these criteria and rubrics that are ready to go and ready to use. And some of them can be customized for your needs. So again, it's like, at least that they write 2 drafts. If you can do more than 2 drafts, great. But if not, 2 drafts at least. Revising and editing, again, usually if we give them feedback, but if we do not ask them to do anything with the feedback, they will throw it away for sure, right? So even if it doesn't have a grade, I know that at school they need to have grades, so you have to grade it at some point. But if they can see that if they do this work, even if a classmate helps them, or they use the application to help themselves, will improve their grades at the end. Not all of them, but maybe a high percentage of them will find it useful. Revising and editing, again, is how they take the feedback provided. It's also a training process. Writing 2 or more drafts of the same text, usually, again, time depends on how much time you can dedicate to this. Proofreading by themselves or someone else, self-assessment of writing is so important. Hard if the students have a very low level, but again, it's training and they can improve over time. And reflection. With a group of colleagues at Católica, we were working on that. Viviana is here, Cecilia is here, and they can tell you like how important reflection is on their progress, if they see that they are improving through the multiple drafting. If they do not have the language to do it in English, that's fine. Even if they do in Spanish, the thing is that they can see and they can tell through the texts that their language is improving. It's not that they're copying, it's that they are using whatever it's at their disposal to improve, whether it is their classmates that give them feedback on ideas because they do not have the language to correct grammar, for example, or just an application that tells them some problems. And some better students will tell you, I know that there's a problem that the application did not pick on, right? So is that just this process, that getting feedback from the teacher or from the peers or from the application, reorganizing ideas, it's an ongoing process. You will decide as a teacher or as a student how many drafts, right? We know if you're writing for publication, how many writes it takes to actually get published. People don't see it when they read it. They will maybe just criticize this as well. But then the job that is behind is like tons, tens and tens. at least 20 revisions and feedback from a lot of people. Editing at the end, after revising, you do it before. When you are in the product approach and you have to write a text for an exam or for an assessment, usually you do not have time to do this, right? So, and you can tell that these are student slips and they are not errors. But again, in high school, for example, if you just ask them to write one text throughout one semester, you need to have marks, so you can have marks in some parts of the process. But if they can see what the writing process is like, in my opinion, humble opinion, I think it's worth it. And then the publishing, the final version, it will depend on what you ask them to do, right? It will be something that they share with the other class, primero medio and primero medio, or something that they will show if it's story in the notice board, or something that they can upload to, if you have a Facebook page or a Padlet application, whatever you have, but something that they see that all this hard work is there and somebody's going to read it and see it. And they need to know from the beginning who's going to read it. The portfolio, I'm just going to mention it briefly. It's something that I've been working, not just me, but with other colleagues, that we were working a lot, and we think it works. We were working with pre-service teachers. We were not working with high school teachers. However, there's tons of evidence that it also works at that level. So just very simple, the writing portfolio is a collection of texts which the student has had the opportunity to develop and to improve over time. So the writing portfolio is like one of the best strategies that you can use for the process approach of writing. The portfolio allows a visualization of the progress throughout a period of time. And it can be just a physical folder like before the pandemic, or it can be a digital folder where they keep everything that they write, including the pre-writing activities, the several drafts, the final product. If they have self-assessment or peer assessment, that they put everything, is like just a repository. The idea, though, is that they do not do it at the very end of the process, not at the end of the term or at the end of the year, but they do it before, so that they can always have a look at what they have been doing before. Because many of them just collect everything at the end, but they won't be able, every time they rewrite a draft, what they did before, which is the idea, like to actually see it. You can go backwards and forward and see that there's improvement there. So the portfolio, this is my experience with a group of colleagues from Universidad Católica de Temuco. There a link to a publication if somebody is interested in implementing a portfolio at any level that you want to implement it. There are the description of every single step. So maybe you can get some ideas from the different steps, and you say, I'm not going to do 2 drafts, I'm just going to do, or 3, I'm going to do 2, I'm going to skip this part. But the process, the rationale is over there. So if you want to have a look, you're more than welcome. So it's just, as I was telling you, we started, the only thing that was different to the process approach is that we included one step when we present the genre. It's not like really mixing the genre and the process approach, but we needed to include it and tell them what a text, this genre, a formal letter, for example, looks like, and which are the parts, what's language that you need to use for each part of the text. And then we started with writing a task. Even at the university level, we sometimes dedicated a whole 2-hour session for pre-writing, just for pre-writing, to listen to them or for them to explain their the idea of their text to their peers. It changed every time, but we try not to skip it, like the brainstorming, pre-writing activity that is planning. And then in our experience, they had to write 3 drafts. The first draft was just general feedback on organization. We did not look at grammar. Then it could be done by the teacher or the peers. Then the following week, they look at this feedback, they wrote another version, an improved version. And then they got feedback again, but this feedback was not on the organization and the microstructure, but on the language itself. And then students evaluated themselves, formative, of course, and then they write a final draft. So they had 3 steps. Well, 4 actually with the end. Pre-writing, they write a first draft, get feedback on organization. With that feedback, they wrote a second draft. They had feedback on language. With that feedback, they wrote the last draft. And like at the same time, they wrote a self-assessment. I didn't understand the feedback. I don't think I had enough feedback. I don't think whatever they felt at the moment, not always positive, of course. And at the end, we evaluated the final draft. If someone did not want to put the whole effort and they just wrote the final draft, that's the one that was assessed, but they missed the whole process. And I would say that at the beginning, many students did that, but at the very end, most students actually realized how important the process was. And they started to write more drafts because that's the one that was assessed. This was at the university level. So at the end, this reflection at the end of the process was very, very valuable for them and for us, because this has a lot of changes throughout like the 5 years that we implemented it. But this reflection was very good at the end for them and for us, and for them to see and to compare their very first pre-writing, especially in the first year, for first year students, and see what they could do at the end, because they could see it there in a physical folder. The reflection, I think without the reflection, the whole process is aimless, it's pointless. So if you're interested in how you can maybe at the university or in high school implement the portfolio and give it a try, check that publication, okay? It might give you some hints. This is a writing portfolio, just a picture that I took because they are very, very, very famous, especially in the States. Here there are types of portfolios. Some people ask them to write everything like we did, everything to put in the folder, everything that they do. And in some other cases, they ask them to choose their best pieces of writing. So if you are interested in portfolios, this is a very good publication. This is the whole book. It was published in 2017 by Ice Lee. She's an author who has been working with portfolios for over 20 years. And in her book, she gives examples. She has a lot of rubrics and checklists for peer feedback, for improving the versions. So I was able to download the book from my university, and the idea is to share, right? So the organizers will send you the book. This is a whole book. It's like 200 pages, okay, where you can get a lot of specific instruments that might help you in your practice. Another example, this is like the self-assessment that we say that usually we can see them in the books, and we think that sometimes they are not valuable and they are just there. And yeah, I'm sure that many students just click without reading much. But if we ask them to include this, for example, in a final reflection, they can actually pay attention. So this is an example of a checklist for self-assessment. And in this other book, published in 2018, that is called Portfolio Assessment for the Teaching and Learning of Writing, you can find also many examples of rubrics and checklists and different criteria to assess writing portfolios. Okay, so again, a copy will be sent to you, and give it have a look if you are interested in portfolios and if you are interested in self-assessment, formative self-assessment. It doesn't have to have a grade every time, right? And now that we are getting to an end, I just wanted to show you some applications. I don't know if I will be able to open them from here. Can you see my screen there? No? Can you see a web page? Okay, so I have to share it again, right?
Yes, we can.
I have to do it. Okay, I'll do it again.
Version, yeah.
Okay, so new share, and let me see where it is. It's here. Okay, so now you can see the web page, right?
Yes.
Okay, so this is a web page from English Profile, which I really like, that you can use with shorter text, because you can use texts which are limited to 500 words per document. So you can use this with your students' writing. I wrote here, this is a piece of writing from a student who allowed me to use it here as an example. And it gives you an idea of the vocabulary that the students are using.
Mm.
Right? So here they classify the vocabulary they are using. So when we say, for example, oh, but you need to use like more sophisticated vocabulary, which is very general, you can just ask them to do this. And you don't have to do it yourself, you just can ask them to do it. So they give you, like, of course, most of the vocabulary is from A1, because they show you the words, because these are like the more common words, and they are like the verb be with all its forms and prepositions and articles, etc. But then you can have like a very very objective way of analyzing their vocabulary, especially there. Yeah, and again, you don't have to do it yourself, you can ask them to do it. Let me see, I'll try to go back to, and I have to new share again. And can you see my presentation again?
Yeah, everything fine.
Okay. And over here, I'm not going to go through every one of these. I've checked them. They are not perfect, of course. I'm sure they are, they wouldn't, you would correct, they were not going to correct like half of what you would correct. But again, it's like if you ask them to write several drafts, but you as a teacher do not have time to give feedback to them the whole time, the first feedback can just be giving but one of these applications, and they can do that themselves, or they can swap the text with a partner, and the partner can do it for the classmates so they do not cheat on their correction. And so give them a try, okay? They work for small text. Most of them are free. Some of them offer you like an upgraded version, but at least like the simpler one is free. And use peer feedback a little bit just to help you, because as teachers, we do not have time to give feedback the whole time to everybody. So this might help you. So let me see so just some conclusions. Like, even though writing is a complex skill, we need to start at some point. If our students cannot write, let's start at the sentence level, and it may be in a term in primero medio, they can just write a paragraph, but do it systematically. I think systematicity is the key for everything, as we all well know. The process approach to teaching writing has shown more advantages than the product approach, as you also might know, because we are all learners of English. We never stop learning. develop the same piece of writing over several classes. It's not a waste of time. It's not a waste of time, never. It's just an investment. Writing portfolios can contribute to writing improvement over time. So you might want to implement that strategy. You can adapt it to your needs. There are plenty of material of lines and things that you can do, that you can use, that you do not need to create, just to adapt it to your context. And most importantly, I think that we always have to remind ourselves that we do not need to do everything on our own, that we cannot do all the work by ourselves, that we need to share, and peers can do that, like the students' peers, and free or paid applications can also help out in this process. We are not cheating because we're using applications. It's not that we are avoiding doing the job. It's because we cannot do everything, right? And it's better just to do it, even if it's not the best practice, because of course it would be better if the teacher gives feedback to every draft and can see every draft. But in reality, we know it's not possible. So at least if we see a couple of drafts, we see the first one and the last one, what happens in between, if they are using the peers or if they are using applications or whatever else they are using to improve the final product, it will be worth it. So there are some references here that you can check. If there's anything that I did not share with you and that's of these references, just get back to me and I can send you more material. I have a lot of material on writing portfolios and the process approach of writing, and I'm more than happy to share them with you, because most of them are from from databases that are paid. So if I have them, I'm more than happy to share them with you. So thank you for your attention. It was just, as I tell you, just sharing some things that we might do together in whatever the level you're teaching. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact me through my email. And thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Pamela, for this quite enlightening presentation. We have many students here in our audience today, so I'm more than sure that it was very useful for them to go through the process of this approach of writing, process approach. Now we will just leave the open word here, and we have some minutes for any questions you may have or comments about Pamela's presentation. Feel free to also, you can write them in the chat box so we can read them.
Sure.
Or you can just feel free to open your microphones and we can have an interaction during these minutes.
I might not have all the answers, but it's just sharing
exactly
my experience. That's the idea, I think.
But we can find the answers. Yeah.
And that's why writing is so important, because we can actually share what we do.
Exactly. Susana, please. Susana.
Yes. Thank you, Pamela. It was a very enlightening talk. Okay?
Thank you,
and it's nice not to call it a conference. Now, I have a comment on the question. Now, in advanced levels, because I'm teaching currently in advanced levels, and writing, it's something that I really pay a lot of attention to. Can you listen to me?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. So I have discovered that at this point, students have made a lot of progress on their grammar, but the problem is organization of ideas. Okay. So, but I have also noticed, and many of my students are here now, okay? So I have noticed that when I give them feedback, they do not realize what's wrong until we meet one-to-one. Now, most students just receive the written feedback with comments, okay, using the word comment tool and some notes. But, you know, I'm always thinking, how do I make my feedback about organization more patent, more materialized for them? Because they don't notice that they are not following a logical progression of ideas. And they put a lot of information, okay, and they have great ideas, but the way they do it sometimes is confusing or messy. And when you tell them what's going on, they don't see that. So how do we develop that? It's a question I have asked myself. How do we develop that sense of correctness, or that sense of, you know, how you made the ideas flow? Because I have detected that's the most common problem students have.
By writing and writing, it's the same thing.
Yeah,
that
I tell them that.
Yeah,
okay?
it's like writing and writing. How many?
And so it's a comment, because I would like to know if my colleagues too experience the same thing, or if it's just me.
No, it happens to me. Like it happens to me now that I'm writing my thesis. It happens. I think conferencing is one of the best with the advanced level students, is one of the best techniques for feedback. You can give them written feedback, and then conferencing is like when you meet one-to-one, tutoring or conferencing. However, to do that, we should expect that students have already read your feedback and they have come up with their solutions, what they think, why they think they made that mistake or the other mistake. Corpora has helped me a lot, and this is what I'm writing, what I'm working with now. Maybe next year I can show you like how checking different corpora might help to improve your own writing. But again, it's like when the genre approach works here better than if they already know the process approach and they do this process while they're writing, the genre approach will work for advanced level students. But again, it's like if they write just one draft and they get feedback on that, what else do they do with the feedback? And by themselves, do they try to rewrite it before they get the final draft? So it will always be like this. It's like the teacher might point what they think is the problem, or what you might not understand, but then they will have to do it on their own a couple of times until they get it right, and probably we will never feel that we get it right as the writer. That's my experience. I don't know if there are many other teachers that work in advanced levels that can have similar experience. Like Viviana, I don't know if Viviana is here, but I tend to exceed the words that I wrote.
Yeah, we have a question there in the chat box.
Yeah, it's talking about the number of words.
Mm-hmm.
The number of words, a lot of ideas. How do they regulate this problem? I think that problem might not be solved because it's a lot of practice again, but might be somehow might be helped with the pre-writing. Because in the pre-writing, if you have in mind that you have to write 300 words and you have to write, I don't know, 2 or 3 paragraphs in order to achieve the task, you just need to include 2 or 3 ideas per paragraph. And you know that you cannot, even though if you have a lot of ideas, Paulina, that you know that you won't be able to develop them in a 300-word text, simplify them in the pre-writing. So then you do not get frustrated while you're writing, because you already know which ideas you are going to include in which ideas maybe are more complex to develop in such a short piece of writing that you need to just leave them out, even if it's hard for you. I think pre-writing is for shorter text is the answer.
Mm-hmm.
Always. That's me as a writer. That's me as a writer.
Right. Would you say that pre-writing is that stage where students need to prioritize?
In my experience, yes. Since I've at university, a teacher of mine that I will always remember, that she taught us in the last level. I think it was in the 4th year. She didn't allow us to write anything until she read our pre-writing, and we were not very happy with that situation because it took us a long time to say, we know what we want to write, so let us write no. And then I could see why at the end. And it, for example, for the standardized test, it has helped me a lot to go through those texts, because I have her words in my head every time I face, especially when it's a timed piece of writing. So because it's there when you decide which ideas you're going to develop in 2 paragraphs or 3 paragraphs, ideas that are closely related, because it's something like they are very, very opposing ideas. You will not have time to actually shift from one idea to the other. So usually we try to give examples that are quite related. And even if you have 30 minutes writing, and if you do that and you spend even near 10 minutes doing the pre-writing, then the writing flows a little, it's smoothly, the process. Again, in my experience, not much both as a teacher, but primarily as a learner and as a writer. It has helped me through standardized testing.
Thank you. Do you have any more questions? Sandra, I think.
Microphone. Okay. Well, first of all, thank you, Pamela, for being here. And my question is, in which approach does the linguistic scaffolding fit?
I would say it helps in all of them, because it will be the process that you do before you assign the task. It will be even when you do it later with the general approach, with the higher levels, it's how you will present and how you will digest this for the student will happen before they actually are assigned the task. And when they are assigned the task, they will start just doing the process and following the stages, let's say, but you have already presented like the material in such a way that they can actually digest it at that level of proficiency that they have. And probably the next writing will be a little bit higher and the following will be a little bit higher. But that's the beginning before you follow the process of developing the writing.
Yeah, because in didactic 3 with the students, we are working with a portfolio and they are preparing the scaffolding because of the level they have. So they know they cannot write long sentences. So one way is using scaffolding. So I was thinking about if it belongs to the process or the product. So it belongs to all of them.
To all of them, because it's like the teaching strategy.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have a few more minutes for more questions. Feel free to open your mics and ask, or write in the chat box. In the meantime, I'm going to ask all the participants if you could please answer a little survey about this presentation. It's for us, for the team who organizes the conferences. You will see the link in the chat box there. Marcia has just shared that. It's a very simple one. It takes no more than 1 minute, and that will be really helpful for our future conferences.
Okay.
Do you have any other questions?
Do you have the participants' email addresses, like to send them the material?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah,
perfect.
so we are if you could share, yeah, we'll be happy to do it as well. All right. Oh,
Okay.
I just open it and it says we need permission. I don't know if we can see that, but okay, we will fix it. Don't worry. We're working on it. Pamela, there is just one final point I like to ask, like from my experience as well as teachers, and because we have many students here, you know, as participants, and they are pre-service teachers, they will at some point face, right, a classroom, and they will teach all of these processes and so on. So it will be very interesting if you could maybe give us some I don't know, lights on what the product process approach is versus the product approach. I know that you put a lot of emphasis on the process in feedback, right? So we cannot stress enough how important feedback is. And we do it with our students all the time. And we have to say that the reality is they usually don't come for the feedback sessions because it takes time. Maybe they just think the teachers are going just to criticize my work. I don't want to be criticized. Nobody wants to be pointed at, right? Or be on the spot, right? Nobody wants to be on the spot. So, but since there are many students here, can you tell us the contrast between process approach and how feedback plays a role there? Product approach.
The product approach, I think, is like how we, like the older ones, mostly learned. Is like they teach you, especially they teach you a genre specific text. Let's say how to write an invitation letter. They showed you the text, which be the model text, and they teach you which are the parts, what are the parts of the text. And usually what they ask is just reproduction of the text. That you are showing the text, and sometimes they give you like language that is most common for that specific text, and then you're given a time to complete the task, whether it is at home or in the classroom itself, in the setting, and you are giving that task and the process is done, is finished. If you get feedback, sometimes it's just, you can get the feedback from the assessment, or if it's a formative feedback, you don't have to do anything, and that's the end. The product is there at the end. And it's usually what we tend to do because we do not have much time to develop and do the process with them because it takes a long time. So it's what we do. We can ask them to do it at home or do it there in the classroom. We collect the text, and that's the product. What we do with the product, whether we actually we grade them or we give them feedback, and then they can read the feedback, it's still the end. They don't have to do anything else with that. Whilst the process approach has one step has to be done in order for the other. We need to do this step first, and then the teacher or the student itself, the learner or their peers, need to be involved to participate and contribute for the improvement of the following version. And then the student needs to do something with that feedback to write a better version. I don't know how many versions they will write. It depends on the teacher, but they need to do the following step. And then after that, if they still get, they get feedback from somebody else to improve a following version, they need to read it and look at their version and improve it there until they get to the final product. So it's a process that takes, that can be done in the classroom, but it's really hard to do it in the classroom. So sometimes if they cannot do a lot of versions in the classroom, they can just start with the pre-writing one class. The other class, they will do it just there. The teacher cannot read the whole thing. Let's write the main idea of your text and in the following class, they will just read how they develop that main idea, and they write just one more paragraph. But whatever they do will take time, and somebody will see that before you reach the final product.
Yeah.
Maybe I made it more complicated.
No, I mean, it was clear enough. Basically, the process involves many stages, of course, where there is space for collaboration and co-learning, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Where you just, in the other one, you just go straight to the point and you just teach how to form the body of a piece of text on that date, right? It's like following only some sort of recipe, or that's the thing. Right. I don't know if more questions before we finish this conference today. We thank Pamela again for.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I hope to see you around again.
Yes.
You need anything,
Definitely.
just feel free to contact me, okay?
Thank you very much. Thanks to all the participants, students, teachers, colleagues. Yes. Before we go, I like to just share these for the people who are just here. If you can go and show your love in Instagram, we will be happy. Okay. This is our Instagram, ELT.UFRO.
Nice.
So as you can see, we have the previous conferences, some pictures. So please follow us there in our social.
I will.
Yeah.
And excuse me to interrupt you. We have only 11 responses so far, and maybe our attendees here do not know that the questionnaire has only 2 questions. The survey is really short, so for us it's something we will greatly appreciate if you go and answer those 2 questions, please.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela.
Nice to see all of you, my
Joel is
colleagues that I
raising
can
their
see here.
There is someone raising their hand.
Oh, sorry.
Joel, I don't know, maybe there is another question.
Yeah, Joel, please. We are listening to you.
Thank you. Sorry, I was a bit afraid to say something, but well, I'm sorry. I've got a doubt referring to if there is any like pre-activity to like get a student interested in writing, because we are going to face like many students who don't like to write even in Spanish, like they don't like writing. So how can we like do some pre-activities to make them feel interested in writing and do something about that? And
that's a very hard question, right? How to motivate students in general, I think, not in all levels. But I think now there's one way that they can see that writing is important, because all of them write in social media. And many of them follow a blogger, and they can, I would start, if I haven't worked with teenagers for a while, but if I had to, I think that's something that I would use, like to choose like a famous blogger or somebody that where you have to, in English, of course, and maybe that they have to respond and write even little messages, or either on Instagram or Twitter or social media in general, and that could be the context that they need to leave a message to someone they like or someone they admire, somebody they look up to. I don't know. I know it's hard, specifically when we need to work with them in academic texts. I can see how hard it is to motivate them, but I think it might be a start, because they do not like writing, that's true. But on the other hand, they do write little pieces of information on their everyday life. And they do read English, even if they do not like the English class, but they are connected somehow with they can just get in touch more often with the artists they like, because all of them have Instagram pages, and you can, and in the class they can, instead of writing, I don't know, a letter to somebody that they will never meet, they can write something for those people that they will see, and they might get a replies at some point, because the person understood what they wrote in English.
Yeah.
Just an idea, motivation, it's another issue.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joel. We have another hand up. Rocio, please.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
I was thinking of motivation too, and I've had a great problem with this because students, they really like translator a lot. And now there are more apps to work with English. So motivation is I think it's more difficult than last year. So for example, if I give them a text and then they have to write anything, there's an app called Lens, and they take a picture and it's translated immediately. So for example, if they have to write, it is really easy for them. So I've been asking this to every person I can, because I don't know how to find any strategy, and I would like to hear something maybe that motivates me, because I would like to get them motivated to work without the translator, because the cell phone and the internet in the classroom is, everyone has internet, everyone. So it's more than ask them to do not use the translator, please, because I'm all the time like that, use word reference or anything, but it's difficult. It's really difficult to get them to have this little motivation, like to make an effort. And I think that is an issue for me right now. So I don't know if is there any strategy in this time to work on.
I don't know, maybe somebody else can help me out here. Because I think like motivation is, like Susanna was saying before, it's like throughout all levels. It's like not just with high school students. I actually, I don't know what I can suggest to avoid using, because those translators, those applications are getting better and better. So it's harder to tell if they can actually. Conferencing would be an idea, but you don't have time to do it, like with each one. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. I was thinking that maybe using the same approach you are using, which is the process. So maybe if they are preparing the text, whichever you want them to produce, and you go class by class using sentences, and maybe Rocio starts from the elementary, like basic ideas. So if you go with them hand in hand in the process, they don't happen to come up with a complete text, like the product approach, and then feel tempted to ask for help because it looks like a huge mountain. But if you use what Pamela was just saying, they don't need to go to a translator if the task for the session was only a sentence.
The thing is, like, absolutely it works. The thing is that now that we are doing it online, it's harder to, I understand what Rocio says, that it's harder because we tended, when we worked with like the lower levels of the program, especially first and second year, we asked them to do everything in class and using handwriting, because there are tons of benefits with handwriting, like with your brain, how you develop ideas, etc., without using just the old dictionary over there and grammar books, etc. But you were there inside with them, and it's not the situation now with everything going online. So that's why it's harder for me to answer the question, because I know that it's hard to control it while you are doing it online. In the class, as you say, Marcia, it's a little, it's I wouldn't say it's that easy, but it's easier at least than if you're doing it in these environments, in an online environment.
Yeah, you're right.
It's a good question for everybody to think about, and maybe we
Thank you,
can
Rocio.
dive
You're
into later
Yeah.
afterwards.
giving us food for thought.
That's a good question. I was just thinking about Rocio's issue, right? I think we all face that one. And what if you make your enemy your friend? I mean, if we use somehow these apps and translation tools in a way that we can give it some action for the class. I mean, I've seen that, for example, in your mobile phones, you can say something and the app is going to just play it in a voice. So maybe you can play games with them and say something in English, and the rest of the class needs to listen and write what they listen. So maybe that could be another way to just kind of be friends with the new apps, right? So like a competition, exactly as Susana says. Oh, Susana, by the way, you're writing me privately. So can you change? Yeah, Susana was. Yeah, in the chat box, your name is in blue, right? And you have a little tab. So if you click on it, you will see send to everyone. So that's a public message. So yeah, as Susana says, some sort of writing competition by using these apps and these translators. So that in that way, you don't just have to deal with it as something that is problematic, but you use it to your own benefit and for the benefit of the students.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's something that we will have to do. Not to try to fight it, but to use it. Yeah.
If you can't against the system.
Yeah, I think so. Those apps are there to stay, and they are just getting better.
Fighting from the inside could be.
Absolutely.
I'm just going to leave here a few seconds. If someone wants to jump into the pool and just ask something else, feel free, please. It's been quite interesting, all of your questions. Thank you for that. Conversation has been very fruitful. All right, Pamela, we really thank you for your time. We know it's
thank you very much.
A bit late in the UK right now, so we probably are thinking about going just to have some rest. Thank you all
for the kids to bed.
Yeah, we wish you, of course, we wish you well in your studies and your program.
Okay, thank you very much. And sometimes you can invite me just as just to watch the other presenters. It's always good to see what's going on over there.
Certainly, we will.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Nice to see you. Hope you're fine. Have a nice weekend.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.